everyone, I'm here today with a spoiler-free review of Storm Deaths by Steve Orme. This is a self-published work that I was gifted from the author in exchange for an honest review. And this wasn't a book that I sought out. I don't really tend to seek out review copies of self-published authors very often, but in a weird combination where this author ended up being near where I was at the time working, I ended up with this book, and he was also kind enough to sign it for me. So this is a crime thriller that is based in the Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire area, and this was the whole appeal of this book and why I was happy to accept it for review in the end, because there's nothing better than reading a book from an area you're very familiar with. I live in Derbyshire and I know Nottinghamshire really well as well, so this was a great delve into some crime in places that I was familiar with, like road names that I was familiar with. So yes, if you are someone who lives in that area and you like a good crime thriller, this might be up your street. If you don't know the area, you still might enjoy this. But anyway, let's get into the review. So this book follows a few different perspectives, and I'll get into that later. But I just want to say right now that that was a slight problem for me. But yeah, that's a later thing. So we follow multiple perspectives, and among those perspectives, we have a police perspective. We also have some various different characters, some of which end up being considered possible suspects for the crimes in this book. So this book ticks a lot of boxes. First of all, it is a murder mystery, as a reporter has been murdered. Around the same time though, a television weather presenter also disappears, which was more gripping for me than the murder side of things, I will say. I was very into the disappearance and I had theories. Again, I'll get back to that later. Meanwhile, this somehow also links to the possibility of a member of a basketball team being implicated as a possible suspect. So, first of all, I want to quickly touch on the writing of this book, because I feel like it's always something that you are going to look at when you are looking at a self-published work, because it's a worry. Picking up a self-published work is always a worry. People don't always pay for the editing, or they just can't write and no one's willing to sort of go, your writing's a bit shit. So that is always a real concern, and it was indeed a concern I was going into with picking this book up, as I'd never heard of the author, although apparently he is an award-winning journalist and he's got links to like radio and stuff as well. So I think he'd got a good background in writing anyway and kind of knew what he was able to do in terms of like grammar. So I don't know whether he got this checked out, but I spotted very few errors, like 2, I think, in the entire book, which is something you can quite easily come across in a typically published book anyway, so I didn't really think anything of it at all. Secondly, if you're worried about the quality of storytelling in a self-published book, then this one, again, I can say you don't need to worry. Before even writing this book, this came about, I did have a chance to chat with him before, and he said that this was inspired from him taking part in a writing competition, and he got quite close to the end of this competition. I'm sure he said he ended up staying in the hotel where Agatha Christie went missing, and there was loads of other kind of like more famous authors there, and they were kind of the ones doing the reading and the judging, and they kind of gave him the push to actually write this. So yeah, it's got some merit behind it. This isn't to say that I think this is a perfect book. I'm going to get into that more. But I just wanted to touch on those aspects before we go deeper into the review, because it is a genuine concern for many people reading a book that is self-published. So yeah, like I said, I don't think those are things you need to worry about with this. What do I think you need to worry about? Well, that's still to come. So first of all, I really enjoyed the tension that this book builds and the plot. I found it gripping. I couldn't put it down when I had the time to read it. I was fully hooked. I wanted to know who the killer was. I wanted to know who the kidnapper was. Were they the same person? I was desperate to find out, so I was turning those pages. I was enjoying the descriptions of famous to me. I was enjoying the descriptions of places that I knew, and roads specifically that I knew, and creepy areas that feature in this. I was really on board and enjoying all of that. What I didn't enjoy was the constant chapter changing perspective. So the chapters aren't long, which again was great. That is always a really good way of being able to fly through a book. But these are really short, like a couple of pages and you're done. A couple of pages and you're done. I mean, this book is just over 300 pages. And it also has, I forgot how many chapters, 71 chapters. So you can work out how often the chapters change. That's not my issue. I love really short chapters. I think it's so important in this type of book to try and keep the flow going, and that's often one of the best ways of doing it. What I don't enjoy is chapters that are short where your perspective keeps shifting because you never really get grounded in the characters. I did struggle to get on board with liking any of the characters as a result because of that. I also struggled with just following the different perspectives. Remembering who was quite a problem. I feel like that's perhaps something that he might be able to grow upon with the future book, as there is going to be a sequel to this book. That leads me into one of my other major issues with this book, the ending. It's quite the cliffhanger. I'm still quite wound up about it, to be honest. I don't like an ending that doesn't actually answer all my questions. Just me personally. Obviously, that's a very subjective thing, but yeah, I finished this and wanted to just throw it across the room because I had unanswered questions. I'm going to have to wait for the second book, which I will be picking up because, like I said, I think the quality of the writing is definitely there. The suspense is there. The atmosphere is definitely there. Although I'm not sure whether this would be the case if people would find it as atmospheric as myself if they weren't familiar with the areas talked about. That's something I can't answer again because I am. To touch upon one last thing I didn't really like, I'm not massively into sport. I don't really follow sport. This focuses quite a bit on a basketball team from Derby and I really didn't care. Even the links of players potentially being involved in the murder and or kidnap, I still didn't really care. And so, yeah, that's a bit of a negative for me as well. Again, that's a personal preference thing and it's definitely not something that someone who enjoys a bit of sport thrown into their crime novel would hate. Meanwhile, it's not like the be all and end all. It's not the main focus. It's just, I kind of found those bits a bit boring, basically. But overall, I thought this was a really solid self-published novel, which is quite a surprise and a joy to stumble across. I'll definitely get my mum to read this sometime soon, so I'll have to see what she ends up thinking of it too. But yeah, if you are after something well written that's self-published, because I know people are trying more and more to delve into self-published work, but it's such a scary thing when you don't know what kind of quality level you're going to get. This might just well be the one that you may want to pick up. You can get it in a physical copy. It is also available on practically every possible digital platform known to man. I did ask him and yeah, it's everywhere. Meanwhile, I did forget to touch upon the fact as well that the policing side of this, Steve did a lot of research into. I did ask him about the levels he went to kind of look at the accuracy of the policing, and it was incredibly accurate. He discussed this with multiple people within the police force and even covered something that I've never seen anywhere before, which was double gloving in police. I wasn't aware of that. Apparently it's a thing. It's in here. So yeah, this is a well-researched, well-written, solid plot piece of work that's just got a really frustrating ending and a few little things that weren't for me personally. So if you're interested in picking this up, please do. Let me know in the comments down below if you do ever pick this up and what you thought of it. Let me know whether I have tempted you into picking this up, and thank you so much for watching this review. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe by clicking the image of me if you want to see more book reviews and other bookish content from me, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye!